Recently, I shared with you guys my small company fleet, and someone actually asked me how I was able to get a small fleet in a relatively short amount of time. And I just didn't want to share, I started writing down, and I just didn't want to share just the end result because I think the uh, the good information it's in the process. How I was able to actually get there. Um, I used to do software development mostly for iPhone, and when I didn't know how to do something, I would Google it, and I would tell myself, give me the answer. I want the answer, and it's not about the answer. It's about the process. How do you get there? Just the answer will be a quick fix. If I explain the process, I feel like it's gonna help you in the long run. So when I started my business, probably 2 months after I started, I realized I needed a company vehicle. So I wanted to be ahead of the game. I wanted to be a vehicle that I could use, uh, for years to come. Um, my first thought was, I need something that I can scale. That I have one team, two teams, 10 teams. I can still use that same vehicle, create that branding exposure. So my first thought was, all right, let me go buy a let me go buy a new car. So I went to all the different dealerships, and more or less, the probably the cheapest car, smallest car, new car was about $20,000. And I have to admit I'm very reluctant to buy a new car, and that's just me. Every time I see the payments and the insurance, I tell myself, well, it's almost like a small mortgage. I'd rather go buy a house, rent it out, and create some equity, create some income. And that's basically every time I think myself, uh, buying a new car, I just, I get it out of the system that way. Um, so I started looking for used vehicles. Um, I went to Facebook, I went to Craigslist, I even went to eBay, and you know, I I, I didn't want to buy someone else's trouble. Sometimes with used vehicles, it feels like a lottery. So I started doing some research, and I realized, well, I might want to go to an auction. I can buy for cheap and have it, fix it up and have a company vehicle and all that. But then I realized it will become a second job. I also didn't want that. Um, so what I realized is I need that person that actually goes to an auction, fixes a vehicle, and then resells it. So I actually paid to go to an auction to meet these people, and this is where I think this is where the secret is. You need to do your research. You need to do networking. You have to mingle with these people, whoever whatever you're trying to do. You have to get to know them. You need to spend time. So I went to an auction and I met a couple of them. I kept looking, I kept doing my research. Um, I ended up, I ended up meeting with a guy. I'm about an hour north of Orlando, so that's about 4 hours away from Miami. So I found this guy in Miami that he does exactly this. He buys cars at auctions. He fixes the cars and then he sells them for a profit. And great guy, nice guy. So so the deal with that I have with him, I buy a vehicle for a small down payment, and then I have monthly payments. But guess what? I pay no interest. So the vehicle is not like the usual deal that you end up paying double for a vehicle. And these are vehicles mostly low mileage. I bought one with 24,000 miles. I bought other two vehicles with about 40,000 miles. So these are not high mileage vehicles, which is what I wanted to avoid. I wanted to avoid that high, mileage because I couldn't pay a lot of money for a vehicle. So for me, doing it in a small down payment and then paying monthly, it worked out fine. And I did go with the Transit Connect, and I would recommend either that or similar. I think Nissan has the NV200, something like that. Um, just it gives you because it gives you a lot of room for your stuff, and it gives you a plenty of real estate for branding. We get a lot of business just when our employees go park at a client's home, and we get that sign there for 2 3 hours. There's a big part of the vehicle that that says who we are, what we do, phone number, and all that. So basically, going back to the story about the vehicles, uh, sometimes I do have to drive down to Miami and drive a vehicle up here, but it also comes down to a book that I recently recommended, "The Power Broke" by Damon John. Basically, tells you you have to have that mentality, whether you have money or you don't have money. You have to have that mentality of doing the work, not just paying someone. Well, I can just get a new vehicle and put it in a credit card or whatever. Now, I'm not against buying a new vehicle. It's just me, and then this is what works for me, or what has worked for me. So that's how I actually got a good deal on the vehicles, and I didn't have to have a high debt on my credit cards or anything like that. Basically, I can afford to have probably another four vehicles the same way and have no problems paying for them. But well, that's what I think. So let me know what you think, and let me know if it helps you.